I'm going to say something that sounds wrong at first. The better you treat her, the faster she can lose interest. Not because she's cruel, not because she's broken, but because attraction does not follow the rules most men live by. I've seen this pattern repeat itself across cities, ages, and backgrounds in the United States. A man does everything right. He's attentive, reliable, consistent. He gives reassurance early and often. And slowly, without a clear moment to point to, her desire fades. He feels confused, betrayed by effort, certain that if he just gives more, it will come back. It won't. What most men never learn is that love and attraction respond to different forces. One grows from safety. The other feeds on tension, uncertainty, and upward pull. When you remove those forces, attraction does not complain. It disappears. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding reality instead of fighting it. If you're watching this, tell me where you're tuning in from in your local time. And if this perspective feels uncomfortably familiar, consider subscribing. Calm insight lasts longer than comforting lies. The first truth I had to accept was uncomfortable because it stripped away morality. It had nothing to do with being good or bad. It had nothing to do with kindness, intentions, or effort. It was biological. Women are wired to seek men with higher survival value than themselves, not as a theory, not as an opinion, as a system that predates language, culture, and modern dating. This wiring was forged long before comfort existed, long before safety was guaranteed, long before feelings were prioritized over outcomes. For most of human history, choosing the wrong man was not an inconvenience. It was a death sentence. Pregnancy made women physically vulnerable for months. Childbirth carried real risk. Raising children required protection, food, and stability over long stretches of time. A man who could not provide those things did not just fail as a partner. He failed as a survival strategy. So, attraction evolved as a filter. Women who felt drawn to men with strength, resources, decisiveness, and social standing survived at higher rates. Their children survived. Their bloodlines continued. Women who chose men based on niceness alone did not pass on their preferences. They disappeared. That pressure shaped desire itself. What we call attraction today is not a rational checklist. It is an ancient assessment running quietly beneath awareness. And it does not ask, is he kind to me? It asks, is he above me? This is where most men misunderstand the game before it even begins. They assume attraction is something a woman decides after evaluating effort, after counting dates, after measuring consistency. But attraction is not built from accumulation. It is triggered by perception, specifically the perception that a man stands higher in value. This instinct has a name: hypergamy. Hypergamy means women are biologically inclined to seek men they perceive as superior in overall value. Not superior in one area. Superior as a total package. Strength, confidence, status, competence, emotional control. A man she can look up to without forcing herself to. This process is subconscious. A woman does not sit down and analyze you. Her nervous system does it for her. And it does not care that we live in modern America. It does not care about grocery stores, social safety nets, or equality in theory. The brain is running on ancient software in a modern environment. That is why a man can do everything right and still lose her. Because when his behavior signals that he is equal to her, or worse, beneath her attraction, shuts off at the source. I used to think this sounded harsh. Then I watched it happen too many times to ignore. The moment a woman senses that a man needs her more than she needs him, something inside her contracts. Desire pulls back. not out of cruelty, out of instinct. Neediness over accommodation, constant reassurance, emotional overinvestment. These behaviors communicate the same message the primitive brain has always recognized: low survival value. In ancestral terms, a man who chased approval could not protect. A man who collapsed under emotional pressure could not lead. A man who placed a woman at the center of his world was a man without a world of his own. So the attraction mechanism did what it was designed to do. It filtered him out. This is where men get angry. They argue with biology as if it should obey fairness. They say it should be different now, that women should respond to effort, loyalty, and sacrifice. But evolution does not update itself to match ideology. The standards that shaped attraction were written over hundreds of thousands of years. Modern comfort has not erased them. It has only made them harder to see. When you understand this, a pattern emerges. Women are not drawn to men who give the most. They are drawn to men who require something to be earned. Not because they enjoy struggle, but because effort flows upward. Always has. A woman does not feel desire for a man she feels equal to, and she cannot feel desire for a man she feels above. This is why attraction fades when a man places her on a pedestal. The pedestal elevates her, but it lowers him, and the subconscious reads that shift immediately. I'm not saying women want to be mistreated. That's a childish conclusion. I'm saying they want to feel that the man in front of them is grounded, capable, and independent of their approval. A man whose emotional state does not rise and fall based on her reactions. A man who does not treat her presence as a rescue. That kind of man signals strength without words, and strength is the foundation attraction is built on. When you remove that foundation, nothing you add later can compensate. Flowers do not replace it. Dates do not replace it. Text messages do not replace it. Effort does not replace it. This is why attraction often fades fastest when a man tries hardest to hold on to it. He is signaling fear, and fear is the opposite of value. Understanding this was not empowering at first. It was sobering. It meant I had to stop blaming outcomes on luck, timing, or the idea that I wasn't enough. It forced me to look at behavior, at signals, at what I was communicating without realizing it. Once I did, the confusion lifted. Attraction was never random. It was never mysterious. It was responsive. Responsive to hierarchy. Responsive to emotional independence. Responsive to whether a woman felt she was reaching up or settling sideways. And once you see that, you can never unsee it. Once I understood the biological filter, the next realization was even harder to face. Attraction doesn't disappear loudly. It erodes quietly through signals most men don't even know they're sending. For hundreds of thousands of years, women had no margin for error. Choosing wrong did not mean heartbreak. It meant exposure, hunger, violence, death. That pressure shaped an internal alarm system designed to detect weakness long before danger arrived. That alarm system is still active. When a man behaves in ways that suggest instability, dependence, or lack of self-direction, the subconscious does not analyze context. It reacts, and it reacts fast. This is where modern men sabotage themselves without noticing. Needy behavior is not defined by words. It is defined by orientation. Who is chasing whom? Who adjusts? Who collapses their boundaries first? Who is emotionally invested beyond what the connection has earned? When a man becomes overly accommodating, he believes he is signaling care. What he is actually signaling is imbalance. He replies instantly every time. He rearranges his schedule without hesitation. He agrees with her opinions even when they conflict with his own. He softens his stance to avoid friction. He offers reassurance before it is requested. He gives emotional access without requiring effort. Each individual action looks harmless. Together, they form a pattern the subconscious recognizes immediately. This man is seeking safety through approval, and approval seeking has always been a liability. In ancestral terms, a man who needed constant affirmation was a man without internal stability. A man who could not hold his ground emotionally would not hold it physically. A man who oriented his identity around a woman was a man without leadership capacity. The modern environment disguises this truth because survival is no longer visibly at stake, but the evaluation process has not changed. It has only become less obvious. Women do not consciously label a man as weak. They feel a loss of desire without knowing why. They feel irritation where affection used to live. They feel boredom where curiosity once existed. They describe it as something feels off. That feeling is the alarm. Men often respond by increasing effort. More messages, more dates, more reassurance, more explanations. They believe attraction is something that can be negotiated back into existence. It cannot. Attraction does not respond to pleading. It responds to position. The moment you begin acting as though losing her would collapse you, the dynamic is already broken. Her nervous system feels the imbalance before her mind can rationalize it. This is why emotional overinvestment is more damaging than emotional distance. Distance can be intriguing. Overinvestment is suffocating. I've watched men destroy attraction not through cruelty, but through fear. Fear of silence, fear of space, fear of being misunderstood, fear of not being chosen. That fear leaks through behavior. You see it in the way he waits for her replies, in how his mood shifts based on her tone, in how quickly he abandons his own plans when she becomes available, in how he seeks clarity when ambiguity would serve him better. From the outside, it looks like devotion. From the subconscious, it looks like dependency. And dependency has never been attractive. This is where many men misunderstand masculinity entirely. They think strength is loud, dominant, aggressive. It isn't. Strength is self-contained. A strong man does not need to convince anyone of his value. His behavior assumes it. He does not rush to secure emotional certainty. He allows time to reveal interest organically. He does not chase alignment. He observes it. Weakness, on the other hand, is reactive. It explains itself. It seeks reassurance. It adjusts constantly. It cannot tolerate ambiguity. And ambiguity is the environment attraction grows in. When a man tries to eliminate uncertainty too early, he kills the very conditions that allow desire to deepen. This is why women often lose interest in men who are too available. Availability itself is not the problem. Orientation is. Is your availability a choice or a reflex? Is your investment measured or compulsive? Does your life continue moving forward regardless of her presence? Or does it stall when her attention disappears? The subconscious is tracking these answers constantly. Here is the part men resist most. You cannot compensate for low perceived value with high effort. Effort does not raise attraction when it flows downward. It only reinforces the hierarchy. A man beneath a woman cannot earn desire by serving her. He only confirms his position. This is why attraction fades faster the more a man tries to save it. The behaviors meant to preserve connection actually accelerate its collapse. Once I saw this pattern clearly, it explained countless experiences that never made sense before. Relationships that started intense and burned out quickly. Women who seemed engaged, then distant without warning. connections that died right after I opened up too much too soon. Nothing had gone wrong. I had simply signaled that my emotional center was no longer my own. Attraction requires polarity. Polarity requires separation. Separation requires a man who stands firmly in himself. When that collapses, desire follows. This is not pessimistic. It is precise. And precision is the beginning of control. Once weakness signals are understood, the next layer becomes unavoidable. Attraction does not operate in isolation. It operates in a hierarchy. This is where the concept of sexual market value comes in. Not as a slogan, not as an insult. It's a structural reality. Every dating environment functions like a marketplace. Not a fair one, not a polite one, but a real one. People are constantly assessed, compared, and positioned relative to one another. This happens silently through behavior, not resumes. Sexual market value, or SMV, is the total perception of your desirability as a partner. And perception is the operative word. Most men misunderstand this immediately. They assume SMV is built from external assets: income, height, muscle, style, status. These things matter, but they are secondary. They open doors. They do not keep them open. What determines a woman's perception of your value is how you move through the world, how you handle pressure, how you respond to uncertainty, how much you appear to need her reaction to feel grounded. A man with high SMV behaves as though his life is already full. A man with low SMV behaves as though her presence completes him. That difference is felt instantly. I've seen men with impressive credentials lose women they never should have lost on paper. Good careers, strong bodies, social proof, and still attraction evaporated. Not because the woman suddenly changed, because his behavior revealed insecurity beneath the surface. He overexplained, overgave, overinvested. He treated her attention as scarce and fragile, something that needed to be constantly protected. Contrast that with men who, by traditional standards, should have struggled. Average jobs, modest living situations, nothing flashy. But their orientation was different. They didn't rush. They didn't perform. They didn't attempt to lock anything down prematurely. Their interest was present, but contained. Their attention was given selectively, not reflexively. They behaved as if women were a complement to their lives, not the axis. That posture alone elevated their perceived value beyond their actual circumstances. This is the part men resist. Perceived value outweighs actual value in attraction dynamics. You can have resources and still signal scarcity. You can lack resources and still signal abundance. The nervous system responds to the signal, not the spreadsheet. Women are constantly scanning for cues, not consciously, but instinctively. They observe how you interact with others, how you handle social friction, how you respond when things don't go your way, how you carry yourself when you're not being validated. They notice whether you fold under pressure or remain steady. They notice whether rejection rattles you or barely registers. They notice whether your confidence collapses when interest is uncertain. These cues tell her where you stand relative to her. And once that position is established, it is difficult to change. Men often try to increase SMV by adding things. More effort, more generosity, more attention. But value is not additive in this way. You cannot stack behaviors on top of a weak frame and expect attraction to rise. Frame comes first. Your frame is the lens through which you see yourself and the situation. A strong frame assumes value. A weak frame asks for permission. When you ask for permission to be desired, you are already beneath. This is why chasing validation is fatal to attraction. Validation seeking reveals what you are used to receiving. It reveals your baseline. A man accustomed to interest does not scramble for it. A man unfamiliar with it clings. Women pick up on this instantly. This is also why men who finally get a chance often sabotage it. The moment opportunity appears, they overreact. They overattach. They overdisplay interest. Their behavior says, "This doesn't happen to me often." And that admission, though never spoken, lowers perceived value immediately. High SMV men behave as if opportunity is normal, because for them it is. They don't rush intimacy. They don't rush certainty. They allow space for the woman to move toward them. This creates an upward pull. Attraction flows in the direction of effort. Whoever is investing more is reaching. When you reach too early, you place yourself below. This is not about pretending to be someone else. It's about correcting orientation. Are you positioning yourself as the chooser or as the one hoping to be chosen? That distinction shapes everything. Men with high perceived value are not cold. They are measured. They are not distant. They are selective. They do not withhold affection out of fear. They delay it out of self-respect. They understand that interest revealed too quickly reveals more than affection. It reveals rank. This is why many men lose attraction the moment they secure the woman emotionally. Once they believe she is locked in, they relax into neediness. They stop leading. They stop holding their frame. The hierarchy flips. She feels it immediately. Attraction does not survive equality in emotional investment. It requires asymmetry, not exploitation. Direction. Someone must lead. Someone must follow. Someone must be slightly ahead. When the man abandons that position, attraction collapses. This is the core misunderstanding. Men think attraction is about convincing. It isn't. It's about positioning. You are not selling yourself. You are revealing yourself. And what you reveal is not what you say. It's how you behave when outcomes are uncertain. That behavior tells the truth. Once I stopped trying to prove value and started protecting it, everything changed. Not externally at first. Internally, I became less reactive, less urgent, less invested in outcomes that hadn't earned investment. And women responded differently. Not because I tried harder, because I needed less. That shift is where real leverage begins. Understanding value in theory is one thing. Watching it play out in real life removes all doubt. I once knew two men whose dating lives made no sense if you looked only at surface facts. The first was a corporate attorney in his mid-30s. 6 figures. A high-rise apartment in a major American city. Physically fit. Well-dressed. On paper, he was everything men are told to become. Women noticed him immediately. And yet the pattern never changed. He would meet a woman, take her to upscale restaurants, plan elaborate dates, send thoughtful messages every morning. He made his interest unmistakable. He prided himself on being consistent and emotionally available. For the first few weeks, things looked promising. Then something shifted. Replies slowed. Enthusiasm cooled. Excuses appeared. Eventually, she would say she wasn't feeling it or that she needed space. He was baffled every time. The second man was the opposite. He worked as a bartender, lived in a small studio apartment. No impressive resume, no visible status. Nothing that should have placed him at the top of any hierarchy. But women behaved differently around him. He didn't take them to expensive places. He suggested coffee or a walk. He teased lightly. He didn't rush to respond to messages. If a woman pulled back, he didn't chase. If she disappeared, he moved on without commentary. Women didn't just like him. They became preoccupied with him. They texted first, asked where he was, wanted to know who else he was seeing, tried to secure his attention. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The difference was not resources. It was orientation. The attorney behaved as though the woman was the prize. His life bent around her presence. His energy flowed toward her constantly. The bartender behaved as though his life was already moving forward. Women were welcome but not central. His energy moved inward first. The women felt this difference immediately. The attorney's behavior quietly communicated, "I hope you choose me." The bartender's behavior said, "I'm choosing whether you fit." One posture invites evaluation, the other invites pursuit. Women respond to the second. This is where perceived value becomes undeniable. The attorney had actual value. The bartender had perceived value. And in attraction dynamics, perception wins. Women do not fall for a man's resume. They fall for how a man makes them feel about themselves. And that feeling is shaped by contrast. When a woman senses that a man's attention is abundant and unguarded, she feels elevated but unchallenged. She feels admired but not pulled upward. When she senses that his attention is selective, she feels evaluated. She feels the need to qualify. Qualification is the engine of attraction. The attorney removed the need to qualify. He approved too early, too easily. His validation required nothing. The bartender's approval when it came was tied to behavior. Humor, engagement, presence, respect. That made it valuable. This is a mistake most men repeat without realizing it. They front-load validation, compliments, praise, emotional openness. They spend their entire emotional budget in the first phase of the connection. What remains after that? Nothing to earn. Women are extremely sensitive to investment asymmetry. They feel when a man has already decided, even if he hasn't said it. They sense when he has placed his emotional center outside himself. Once that happens, the dynamic is set. I watched the attorney try to fix the pattern by doing more. More generosity, more reassurance, more communication. It only made things worse. Every added gesture reinforced the same message. I am investing more than you. And in doing so, he lowered himself further in the hierarchy. The bartender did the opposite. When interest was reciprocated, he matched it. When it wasn't, he withdrew without resentment. He never punished, he never pleaded, he never explained. That emotional discipline made him magnetic. This is not about playing games. It's about emotional economy. Attention is currency. When you give it away without discernment, it loses value. When you allocate it deliberately, it gains power. Most men do not realize they are pricing themselves out of attraction by flooding the market with their availability. They believe consistency creates security, and it does. But security alone does not create desire. Desire requires contrast. The attorney was always available, always predictable, always aligned. The bartender was steady but not accessible on demand. His life did not rearrange itself around every interaction. That unpredictability kept women engaged. Predictability is not the enemy. Over-predictability is. When a woman knows exactly how you will respond to every stimulus, there is nothing left for her to explore. Curiosity dies, and without curiosity, attraction fades. This is why so many relationships lose intensity over time. The man, in an effort to be good, becomes completely readable. His routines solidify. His reactions become automatic. He stops surprising. He stops leading. He stops creating emotional tension. He becomes safe. And safety without polarity becomes dull. The so-called bad boy is often misunderstood. Women are not attracted to poor behavior. They are attracted to men who do not bend to expectation, men who act from internal authority rather than external approval. The bartender did not try to impress. He did not seek permission. He did not adjust his identity to maintain interest. He remained intact. That integrity was felt as strength, and strength more than any external trait sustains attraction. Watching these two men taught me something I could not unlearn. It is not what you have that creates desire. It is how you position yourself in relation to her. One man offered himself. The other offered an opportunity. Women choose the second every time. After seeing how perceived value overrides reality, the next mechanism becomes obvious. Attraction is not sustained by certainty. It is sustained by tension. Human beings do not obsess over what they fully possess. They obsess over what remains unresolved. This is not romance. It is psychology. The less certain a woman is about your level of interest, the more mental energy she allocates to you. Not because she enjoys confusion, but because the mind is designed to resolve open loops. When something is predictable, the brain files it away. When something is uncertain, the brain returns to it repeatedly. This is the principle of intermittent reinforcement, and it governs desire far more than men realize. Consistent rewards create comfort. Inconsistent rewards create fixation. Your attention functions the same way. When your interest is constant, obvious, and freely given, it becomes background noise. When your interest appears selectively and unpredictably, it becomes salient. Most men do the opposite of what attraction requires. They eliminate uncertainty as fast as possible. They text immediately after meeting. They express how much they enjoyed the interaction. They seek reassurance. They clarify intentions. They try to lock down momentum before it fades. In doing so, they remove the very tension that would have kept her engaged. Let me give a simple example. A man meets a woman at a social event. The conversation flows easily. There is mutual interest. Numbers are exchanged. The typical response is immediate validation. I had such a great time talking to you. You're amazing. I'd love to see you again soon. The intention is good. The effect is destructive. All uncertainty is gone. She knows exactly where she stands. There is nothing left to interpret. A man who understands tension behaves differently. He allows space. He does not rush to confirm. He does not chase the moment. He lets it breathe. Days later, he sends a concise message. Clear, direct, unemotional. Coffee. Tuesday, 3 p.m. No qualifiers. No enthusiasm. No reassurance. The message communicates interest without investment. That balance is rare, and rarity creates value. The mind fills the gap. Does he like me? Why hasn't he said more? What is he doing? Those questions occupy her attention. This is not manipulation. It is how the brain assigns importance. The same mechanism explains why people lose interest in things that are always available. Streaming platforms, notifications, constant stimulation. Scarcity creates focus. Your attention should be scarce. When men flood women with attention, they believe they are being loving. What they are actually doing is devaluing themselves. Think of validation as a currency. Its worth depends on how easily it is obtained. When validation is free, it is worthless. When it must be earned, it is cherished. Most men destroy attraction by validating too early. They compliment her looks constantly, agree with everything she says, treat her as exceptional before she has done anything to distinguish herself. They do not realize they have just revealed their baseline. They have revealed that her presence alone is enough to move them. And that revelation places her above them. Women are exceptionally skilled at reading investment. They do not need verbal declarations. They read behavior. How fast you reply, how available you are, how much your mood shifts, how quickly you rearrange your life. These cues reveal your level of interest with brutal accuracy. This is why telling a woman you like her is less damaging than acting like you need her. Words can be ignored. Behavior cannot. Women want to feel special, but they want to earn that feeling. When admiration is given without condition, it loses meaning. When it is tied to behavior, it gains power. I once knew a man who dated a professional model. She was accustomed to constant attention. Compliments followed her everywhere. He did not comment on her appearance, not because he was indifferent, but because it was obvious. Instead, he acknowledged her intelligence when she said something thoughtful. He praised her humor when she surprised him. His validation was specific, earned, rare. She became invested, not because he withheld affection, but because he allocated it deliberately. This is the distinction most men miss. Withholding is fear-based. Allocation is value-based. One repels, the other attracts. Predictability is another silent killer of desire. When a woman knows exactly how you will respond, exactly when you will call, exactly how you will feel, her nervous system disengages. There is no reason to invest attention in what is already known. This is why relationships often become routine. The man's effort to be reliable becomes rigidity. His desire to reassure becomes repetition. He removes all mystery. Mystery is not deception. It is depth that has not yet been explored. When there is nothing left to explore, attraction cannot survive. The goal is not to create anxiety. The goal is to preserve openness. When a woman cannot fully map you, she stays engaged. Once she can, she stops. Understanding this shifts everything. You stop trying to prove interest. You stop trying to secure certainty. You stop trying to be chosen. You allow interest to unfold instead of forcing it. That restraint is what creates pull. Attraction does not respond to pressure. It responds to gravity. And gravity requires distance. Once uncertainty is in place, something subtle begins to happen. The dynamic reverses. The woman stops waiting to be chosen and starts assessing whether she might lose you. This is where most men misread female behavior entirely. They assume women are testing competence, strength, masculinity. They believe every challenge is a judgment of whether they are man enough. That's not what is being tested. What is being tested is interest. Women constantly test how much you care. Not because they are manipulative, but because their subconscious needs to locate your position in the hierarchy. Every test asks the same question: do you value me more than you value yourself? If the answer is yes, attraction declines. These tests are rarely obvious. They appear as small moments, casual remarks, slight withdrawals, changes in tone. Men who do not understand this respond emotionally. They chase reassurance. They explain. They compete. They try to win approval back. And in doing so, they answer the question incorrectly. The first common test is comparison. She mentions another man, an ex, a co-worker, someone who is attractive or accomplished. The untrained response is jealousy or defensiveness. Subtle competition, trying to reassert worth. That reaction reveals insecurity. The correct response is calm indifference. Sometimes even agreement. Yes, he seems confident. Then moving on. This signals that her approval is not the source of your self-worth. The second test is availability. She suggests plans and cancels at the last minute, or becomes inconsistent, or disappears briefly. Most men react immediately. They try to reschedule. They express disappointment. They seek explanation. This communicates dependence. The correct response is neutrality. No problem. Then you make other plans. You do not punish. You do not chase. You do not adjust your life around her inconsistency. This tells her that your time has value independent of her. The third test is attitude. She becomes cold, distant, slightly disrespectful. Men often rush to repair the mood. They ask what's wrong. They try to cheer her up. They take responsibility for emotions that are not theirs. This collapses polarity. The correct response is mirroring. You remain calm. You match energy. You do not overfunction emotionally. If she withdraws, you allow space. This forces self-correction. These tests are not conscious strategies. They are instinctive probes. Her nervous system is checking for stability. She is not asking for more effort. She is asking for less reactivity. When a man fails these tests, the consequences are biological. When a woman perceives that a man's value is lower than her own, her body begins to reject him. This is not metaphorical. Attraction is regulated by neurochemical responses. When her subconscious concludes that a man is beneath her, sexual desire diminishes. Irritation increases. Intimacy declines. She may still care about him. She may still feel attached. But desire pulls away. This is why so many relationships lose physical connection over time. Not because love is gone, but because polarity has collapsed. From her biological perspective, a man who cannot hold emotional ground cannot hold physical ground. If he cannot stand up to her, he cannot stand up for her. The brain makes this leap instantly. Men often interpret this withdrawal as cruelty or betrayal. They take it personally. They assume they have done something wrong. In reality, they have done something consistent. They have failed to maintain position. Once attraction drops below a certain threshold, it cannot be argued back into place. Logic has no leverage over instinct. This is why attempts to discuss attraction openly often fail. The conversation itself reveals need. Understanding this is painful, but it is also freeing. It removes blame. It allows you to stop personalizing her behavior and start observing dynamics. When you stop chasing approval, something interesting happens. The tests escalate. She becomes more direct, more affectionate, more invested. This is another psychological shift men often miss. When a woman is uncertain about your interest and fears losing you, her communication style changes. She moves from covert to overt. Instead of hints, she becomes direct. I miss you. I can't wait to see you. What are you doing tonight? This happens because hypergamy is activated. Her subconscious begins to reassess your value upward. And upward value triggers pursuit. This is why women who truly like a man behave differently. They respond promptly. They initiate. They invest emotionally. They stop testing and start securing. Men who do not understand this often sabotage the moment. The instant she shows overt interest, they overcompensate. They flood her with reassurance. And the cycle resets. High-value behavior is consistent. It does not spike under pressure. It remains calm. The man who passes these tests does not change his orientation when interest increases. He matches, but does not exceed. This maintains polarity. Attraction thrives in that space. The difference between men who lose women and men women cling to is not effort. It is emotional discipline. One reacts, the other responds. One seeks certainty, the other tolerates ambiguity. One adjusts himself to be chosen. The other allows himself to be evaluated. Once I stopped failing these tests, women behaved differently around me. They invested earlier. They communicated more clearly. They showed anxiety about losing my attention. Not because I withheld affection, because I stopped overgiving it. When a woman's tests are consistently failed, something deeper activates. Attraction does not simply fade, it reverses. This is the stage most men never understand because it feels irrational from the outside. She becomes irritable, critical, distant. Intimacy drops. Small behaviors start to annoy her. Things she once found endearing now feel heavy. Men assume this is emotional volatility, or boredom, or loss of love. It isn't. It is biology disengaging. When a woman's subconscious determines that a man's value is beneath her own, her nervous system begins to treat him as a poor reproductive bet. This decision is not conscious. It is automatic. Her body stops responding. Sexual desire declines first, then respect, then impatience. She may still say she cares. She may still feel attached. But her body is no longer aligned with the relationship. This is why logic cannot fix it. You cannot reason with instinct. You cannot explain attraction back into existence. You cannot negotiate desire. The more a man tries to discuss the issue, the worse it gets. The conversation itself signals insecurity. It confirms the imbalance. From her perspective, the man has become emotionally fragile. He seeks reassurance. He seeks validation. He seeks certainty. And in doing so, he confirms the very conclusion her biology has already reached. This is why women often say, "I don't know what changed." Nothing changed externally. The hierarchy changed internally. She no longer feels that upward pull. Attraction requires polarity. Polarity requires tension. Tension requires difference. When a man becomes emotionally submissive, the difference disappears. He is no longer a source of grounding. He becomes another emotional variable she has to manage. That burden kills desire. This explains one of the most painful experiences men face. A woman stops being intimate, but insists she still loves him. From a male perspective, this feels contradictory. From a biological perspective, it makes perfect sense. Love and attraction are governed by different systems. Love is cognitive. Attraction is visceral. Love responds to history, care, and attachment. Attraction responds to position polarity and perceived strength. When a man loses polarity, love may remain. Attraction does not. This is also why many women initiate breakups without a clear reason. They feel repelled without understanding why. Their body has already decided. Men often accuse women of being illogical in these moments. They are wrong. The logic is simply older than reason. This is the moment where men often make the final mistake. They panic. They sense the withdrawal and respond with urgency. More communication, more emotional exposure, more reassurance, more effort. They try to pull her back emotionally. But attraction does not move backward under pressure. It collapses further. Every attempt to secure her confirms that losing her would destabilize him. And that signal pushes her farther away. This is the paradox. The more you need attraction, the less attractive you become. At this stage, the only thing that can restore attraction is not action toward her. It is correction within yourself. You cannot chase your way back into polarity. You must reestablish internal stability. That means reclaiming your emotional center. It means stopping the pursuit of reassurance. It means allowing distance without fear. Most men cannot tolerate this. They interpret distance as loss. They rush to close it. But distance is not the enemy. Dependency is. When a man stops reacting to withdrawal, something interesting happens. Her behavior changes. She becomes confused. She escalates. She seeks contact, not because she enjoys power games, because her nervous system is recalibrating. If he is no longer chasing, perhaps he is not beneath her. That uncertainty reopens attraction. This is why men who move on often become desirable again, not because they played a trick, because they stopped signaling collapse. They reclaimed autonomy. Autonomy is attractive. A man who can lose a woman without losing himself is rare, and rarity creates value. This is not about punishment or withdrawal as strategy. That becomes manipulation. This is about genuinely restoring your own frame. Your frame is the way you experience reality. A strong frame does not ask to be validated. It does not seek permission. It does not bend to emotional pressure. When your frame is intact, you respond instead of react. When it collapses, you plead instead of lead. Women feel this immediately. Attraction cannot exist toward a man who is emotionally unsafe. Not unsafe in the sense of aggression, but unsafe in the sense of instability. A man who cannot regulate himself cannot regulate a situation. And regulation is what women seek at the deepest level. This is why strength is so often misunderstood. Strength is not dominance. It is containment. The ability to hold emotion without spilling it onto others. The ability to remain grounded when things are uncertain. The ability to walk away from imbalance without resentment. That kind of strength reactivates attraction. Not always immediately, not always guaranteed. But without it, attraction cannot exist at all. This is where many men realize something painful. They were not abandoned because they were kind. They were abandoned because they were afraid. Afraid of loss, afraid of silence, afraid of not being enough, and fear shapes behavior. Once fear is removed, everything changes. Not because you become someone else, because you stop betraying yourself. Attraction returns to men who stand firmly in themselves, not to those who chase it. Once attraction collapses and the biology behind it becomes clear, the solution is no longer mysterious. It is just difficult, because it requires a man to give up the one thing he's been trained to do: chase. At the center of everything is a single internal state: abundance. Abundance is not about having multiple women. It is not about options in the literal sense. It is a psychological posture. A man with abundance does not need a specific outcome to feel complete. His identity does not hinge on being chosen. Most men operate from scarcity. Scarcity says this opportunity is rare. Scarcity says loss would be catastrophic. Scarcity says hold tighter, give more, explain more. And scarcity leaks through behavior. A man with abundance behaves differently without trying. He does not rush. He does not cling. He does not overcorrect. He does not panic when attention fluctuates. He is not indifferent. He is anchored. This anchoring is what women respond to. Abundance creates natural restraint. Restraint creates polarity. Polarity sustains attraction. When a man no longer needs validation to feel stable, he automatically passes the tests that used to trap him. He doesn't chase when she pulls back. He doesn't compete when she compares. He doesn't overfunction when she becomes emotional. He remains steady. This steadiness is often mistaken for arrogance or coldness by men who don't understand it. It is neither. It is emotional self-sufficiency. From that place, leadership emerges naturally. Masculine leadership has nothing to do with control. It has nothing to do with dominance. It is not about forcing outcomes or suppressing emotion. Leadership is direction. A man who leads knows where he is going. His life has momentum. His values are defined. His decisions come from clarity, not consensus. When a man constantly asks for approval, he forfeits leadership. When he defers every decision, he signals uncertainty. When he centers his life around her preferences, he dissolves polarity. Women are biologically drawn to men who can lead because leadership reduces chaos. It signals safety, not safety through compliance, but safety through competence. This is why decisiveness is attractive. Not because women want to be controlled, but because they don't want to carry the burden of constant decision-making. A man who says, "We're going to try that new Italian place downtown," is not being domineering. He is providing structure. Structure creates relaxation. Relaxation allows attraction to surface. Contrast this with the man who asks, "What do you want to do?" then defers again, then checks if it's okay, then apologizes for suggesting anything at all. That man is not kind. He is ungrounded. Leadership also shows up in emotional investment. In every relationship, the person who invests more emotionally holds less power. This is not cruelty. It is physics. Power flows toward the one who can walk away. Investment reveals dependency. Dependency erodes attraction. This does not mean you should never invest. It means investment must be earned and matched. When you invest before she does, you create imbalance. When you invest more than she does, you lower yourself in the hierarchy. Balanced investment feels stable. Imbalanced investment feels suffocating. A man operating from abundance allows her to invest first, not as a tactic, but as a natural consequence of his orientation. He does not chase connection. He invites it. He matches energy. He does not exceed it. This preserves polarity. Frame control ties all of this together. Your frame is your internal narrative, how you interpret events, how you define yourself, how you understand the dynamic. Women constantly test your frame, not consciously, instinctively. They push, they withdraw, they challenge, they provoke emotion. They are not trying to destabilize you. They are checking whether you are stable. When a man abandons his frame to keep the peace, attraction drops. When he argues to defend it, attraction drops. When he calmly maintains it, attraction rises. Strong frame does not explain itself. It does not negotiate its reality. It simply exists. A man with strong frame does not need to win arguments. He does not need to prove points. He does not need to justify his boundaries. He is clear, and clarity is grounding. This is where most men confuse rigidity with strength. Strength is flexible but firm. It bends without breaking. It adapts without collapsing. Frame control is not stubbornness. It is self-trust. When a man trusts himself, women can trust him. Without frame, everything else fails. You can have resources, look, status, and charm. Without frame, you will still lose attraction. With frame, even average men become magnetic. This is why self-improvement advice often misses the point. Men are told to lift more, earn more, optimize more. None of that matters if your internal orientation remains scarcity-driven. You can build an impressive exterior around a collapsing center. Women feel the collapse immediately. Conversely, a man with a grounded center radiates value regardless of circumstances. This is why millionaires get dumped, and bartenders keep women obsessed. The difference is not external, it is psychological positioning. When a man stops seeking validation, stops over-investing, stops reacting emotionally to uncertainty, everything shifts. Women sense that he is not trying to extract worth from them. He is not asking to be completed. That alone places him above the majority of men. This is the quiet truth. The most attractive men are not those who try to be attractive. They are those who are already whole. They treat women well because they want to, not because they fear losing them. They invest because it feels aligned, not because it feels necessary. They can walk away without bitterness, and they can stay without dependency. That balance is rare, and rarity is what attraction has always responded to. The deepest lesson in all of this has nothing to do with dating. It has to do with how you place your sense of worth in the world. Most people spend their lives negotiating for permission to feel enough. They look for it in attention-approval relationships, achievement. They believe that if someone chooses them, desires them, stays with them, then they can finally relax. But anything that gives you worth can also take it away. And when your value depends on something external, fear quietly begins to shape your behavior. Real stability comes from alignment, not attachment. From knowing who you are, what you stand for, and where your life is going, whether anyone is watching or not. When you stop trying to be completed by someone else, you become grounded. And grounded people move differently. They choose instead of chase. They invest without desperation. They walk away without resentment. That changes not just how others respond to you, but how you experience your own life. This applies to relationships, but it also applies to work, leadership, loss, and solitude. When you are rooted in yourself, rejection doesn't define you. Uncertainty doesn't destabilize you. Silence doesn't scare you. You begin to act from clarity instead of urgency. If this perspective resonated with you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment and share what stood out or where you're watching from. And if you want more calm, honest conversations like this about psychology, relationships, and personal strength, consider subscribing. Not out of habit, out of alignment.